Hello, everyone. Welcome to another GoDaddy Pro EMEA Meetup. As we rolled out WooSummer sessions throughout the summer of 2021, today's topic that we will be discussing is security. So today we have representatives of Security Security. Hello, Victor. Hello, Joshua. Nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Actually, and the cause why we wanted to speak to you is that so far we learned how to create content and how to create the e-commerce website and about the hosting and many different things. And now we came to a point of how actually to secure the content of the website and the businesses that we have. There are so many things happening constantly in the internet arena. So maybe it's a great time actually for you guys to update us on what is the best way to actually secure your WooCommerce store. So here it is, Victor. Thank you very much for joining us tonight and that you will be sharing some presentation with us. If you have any questions, please write those in chat and our speakers will attend to those as soon as we finish with the official part of the presentation. So in order not to waste more of our valuable time, here it is, Victor Santoyo and Joshua Hammer presenting Security Security. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen here, and then we'll show some, some slide materials to help kind of guide through the presentation. As mentioned, Victor and this my director of sales, Joshua, is alongside with me. I'll run through the presentation, and then the both of us together will handle any questions at the end of the session. But the idea is to center around e-commerce security, and for a lot of new business owners, what does that even mean, and what are 2021 type of recommendations one can make to make sure that everything is safe, right? So let me just at the end of the presentation. Let me fix this real quick. All right. So these are our lovely faces here. We have been with Security for 6-7 years now, so we've seen a lot, both within the SMB space, with agencies and enterprises that we work with on a daily basis, and tackling a lot of the issues that often people get concerned about, right? How do we remain safe? How do we keep making money? A lot of those things that tie in together. So what are going to be the takeaways for everyone here? Why is the hows of e-commerce security? How does that differ from website security, if it does? And what are just good general practices that you could be taking? And I'll highlight a couple things I've been noticing over the last couple of weeks and months, actually, some new techniques and new things that are coming up that would be helpful for you, right? Because sometimes malware takes time to either evolve or disclose themselves, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But in reality, let's start with what it is. Why are we here? We have our site up. We want to get our e-com shop running. We're installing some form of WordPress in WooCommerce. Maybe you're leveraging also a completely different type of shop at some point. Maybe you're using this platform for now, but may migrate to, something else down the line, a Magento if you become large enough, as an example. But these are still going to be all key tenets and principles that you want to apply and take with you, no matter where you end up through your e-commerce experience, right? So what are we starting with? What do we want to tackle? Well, let's first talk about what is it? What is website security? What does it mean for e-commerce? Website security, generally, you're talking about protecting a site or your web application by being able to be there to provide visibility, protect, and have the ability to respond to some form of an online cyber threat. So whether that's, hey, we're looking to monitor for certain types of infections, certain spam, being able to put something in place to defend the site, of course, right? You want to be able to block out the noise, those red, bugs there on the screen. And of course, having something in place where if you're not sure or you're in the middle of an incident, we can respond. That last part probably being the most important cog in the wheel for you as an e-com website owner. Why? Well, first, it's about making sure that if something like this ever appears, you have a plan in place to be able to respond in a very timely fashion. With finances, with business, right? Time is money. Every second you're down is every second you're not potentially making money. Every moment you're not you're not appearing in Google search results and all that is something where people are not finding you, and again, you're not making money. So avoiding this especially is key to making sure your finances continue to flow in, your reputation is not being tarnished, among other things, right? Because stuff like this takes time to undo. And not only time to undo, but sometimes money to fix and respond with. Oftentimes the consequences are just heavy fines and fees and costs and all that kind of stuff. Average cost for a single PCI incident, PCI meaning complying with data privacy specific to finances and all that, can be upwards into the 80,000 US dollars for small business owners. That's a lot. And if you're a small shop, that can be a really heavy toll. And it's still a heavy fee, no matter how large your business is and how many customers you have and how much revenue you're producing, right? Just for a single incident. And sometimes this cost does not include the fees or the fines for having been in breach of, let's say, something like PCI or GDPR, which often ends up being a cause for these issues. So keep this in mind, right? You're working really hard to get online. You have to, of course, do all the necessary things. You're getting a proper payment portal set up. You have to have your SSL certificate in place, and you're trying to make sure you're complying with all these new data regulation standards globally, whether it is, PCI, GDPR, CCPA, if you're doing business on the West Coast of the States in California. These are going to be more and more of these types of regulations are going to keep evolving. This is the nature of things as they've been for a few years now, especially going into, post-pandemic where more and more people are online. So the key thing when I touch on this topic is just to understand, when you're in breach of one, you're likely in breach of another, which means different entities can find you, on top of each other, right? It's not like these are all regulated by the one main body, and then you've got this one fee that'll account for all of them. You can be fined independently for each and every single one, depending on where you do business. Over the last couple of years, this is just on GDPR fines, right? This is the average in euros of what the fine structure looks like for you. In 2020, things were a bit better. In 2019, a lot of people were still navigating this space. And ideally, this number should continue to go down because more and more there are resources on making sure that you're doing everything in your power to protect the data of your customers. E-commerce security is primarily about that, making sure that the data of your customers are safe. You're doing everything in your power to keep attackers from getting in, hijacking into your databases, to pull all that cardholder data or anything that can identify someone personally. These are the things to be in mind. So how do they get in, right? What is it that they're doing to be able to get this data that then puts you in breach and the domino effect from there? Well, first, keep in mind that a lot of these elements are always perhaps not specifically related to your website, right? Email, right? If you've got a weak email access point, whether it's a weak password, you're not using multi-factor, which you should, for recovery purposes, this is one way they can get in. All of a sudden they have all they need to start resetting passwords or maneuvering logins and all that. Your computer, of course, the device itself, whether it's your computer, whether it's your phone, whether it's your tablet, these are devices that if you install the wrong software, if you don't have antivirus software or anything like that, then if security is compromised there, and let's say that computer has all of your passwords just auto-stored in browsers and things that are easy to get into, there's another channel they can get in. So these are things that can happen, right? If you're not utilizing the right certificate, the security of the server where you're hosted, or if you're not applying, the proper restrictions on WordPress or Ecommerce as you install this stuff. Again, these are all things that sometimes are directly related to the site, and sometimes just day-to-day programs or day-to-day machines and tools that you're using. This is how our attackers are getting in. And one thing I'll bring up, as I was having a conversation with someone last week, actually, was that they've had we've seen a couple of things specific to an anonymous Fox hack that has impacted a number of agencies that we've helped with recently. And one of the key takeaways was a lot of people have noticed that a lot of files that were activated in order to execute this hack were files that were installed back in December. Meaning a hacker's got in, waited, and then executed this task. So these are not things that happen like right away. You know, if you get infected tomorrow, doesn't mean the infection happened today. They might have been in there for months, a long time, just dormant, waiting for an opportunity. These delayed tactics are common. So sometimes it's not about even the how, it's the when. And that's why it's very key that from the very beginning of this process, as you're getting online or expanding your presence, that you're always accounting for, are we doing everything we're doing to make sure that these hows don't happen? So what do, right? How do we prevent stuff like this? So when we talk about what we're trying to secure, look at this list. And this is just a small component of the list, right? Your hosting accounts, your control panels, whether it's access to DNS, mail servers, your connections, what ports do you have open or closed. I know some of this jargon might go right past your head. That's fine. Talk to your host, your developer, whomever on your team is best equipped to answer some of these questions. Are we doing the best we can to restrict access to our WP admin, to the databases themselves where all of this cardholder data is being stored? Is that being stored with us, through another provider? What are they doing? You know, if you're leaning on a third party to do some other stuff for your store and presence, talk to them as well. What are their procedures and policies for this stuff? You know, again, looking at your home, your office setup, these are all different avenues. And again, these are principles that you can take with you if you move away from a WordPress environment. If you're going somewhere else, these are still questions that need answers. Because the last thing you want to be doing is paying those 7-6-figure fees and fines that you saw in those previous slides. No one wants to be responsible and be held accountable for those totals. So one thing that can also be very helpful is making sure that you also minimize what is available for a hacker to take advantage of. And primarily, people think, oh, hackers do it because I'm using a platform that has weak code or something, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's simply you made a choice to go with a piece of software that's not necessarily either super important or properly secured. So look at all the plugins and themes and tools that you're installing. What are you noticing about their reviews, the amount of downloads, right? Are you seeing a plugin that's really heavily used? Probably seeing a lot of touches and updates, which is good. If you're not seeing a lot of comments, it's been last touched 6 months ago, probably stay away from something like that. And see what sometimes will developers talk about when it comes to security patches. Do you see a history of it? Are they offering features within those tools that are security centric? That's helpful too, right? Being able to say, hey, also when you enable this, you might get text messages to validate an action because we want to make sure this is you. That's actually a really neat thing to see. Might appear to be inconvenient, but at the end of the day, important, right? You'd rather spend the few seconds to validate something than the hours and days and weeks trying to figure out what happened. Again, do you have also a plan for whenever these updates are released? Sometimes I know shops and clients, like to get really creative and messing around with core code and customizations and all that, that's fine. But if there are disclosed security announcements on something you're based on, it's important to know that, because then you need to have some kind of a plan in place to then make sure you're not going to get exploited by this new particular tactic, right? So updating is going to be key, and that's going to go for everything: your extensions, your themes, things on the server, things on your machines. Update your antivirus software, all of it. These are the number. Oftentimes, every time we get reports back out to partners that we work with and larger entities, and we give them the entire inventory of sites that we've been touching and to review, I cannot tell you how many times a large majority of those domains have a tag on that saying outdated CMS installation, insert version, whatever it might be. So, be always clear that you do have a plan in this, whether it's automated. If you're working with someone on the managed, let's say on the managed WordPress side, then make sure that's something that you do have already accounted for. Hey, our update's going to be properly installed and, tested for my site, because you don't want to fall behind. Things change too often. I think even been a lot of WooCommerce types updates over the last 6 months and stuff. So continue to evolve. The anonymous fox hack that I've mentioned is actually an old one. It's a 2018 type of variant, and it's just started to introduce itself into the ecosystem now. This happens too. Old techniques get remodified because as WordPress continues to change, as it always has, especially with the large transition off of the old editor into Gutenberg and all that, you want to make sure that from a security perspective, you're covered. Other things that may be helpful, of course, besides just updating your sites, is like a lot of things I touched on, right? Avoid pirated software. That can't be trusted. Making sure you're limiting access where possible. Meaning if you don't need to be sharing administrative user access to everybody under the sun. Only those who absolutely need it. Changing your password, posture in terms of how strong you're making them. Using a password manager may be helpful. I know I use LastPass, and a number of people on my team do. SSL certificate, I have it listed there. It's very obvious. It should be kind of by default thinking as an e-com shop. You can't really get online properly. But the biggest thing there is making sure it is applied properly. A lot of times people will buy a cert and they'll have, for example, www.ecomm.com in there listed, but the naked domain's missing. Maybe you have subdomains or you're creating new subdomains. Don't forget to get provisioned those certs for them as well, or making sure you have the proper redirects in place throughout your website as you got maybe a much more interesting UI UX experience, but you're getting a lot of weird mixed content errors because the redirects are messing stuff up. So it's not just simply the existence of the certificate, it's also making sure you're accounting for how it's being applied throughout the process of your site. Real quick, I do have roof work done, so you'll forgive some of the noise. But I'll wrap up with this. Making sure you have a proper recovery plan is going to be key. If something goes south, let's say you tried your best to go through all of these steps, you got here, and you still got infected, I'm going to tell you that is something that can happen. There's no formula for guaranteeing zero infections. Anyone that tells you is speaking in hyperbole. Pragmatically, there's just no way. Things change too often. Sometimes, a lot of this is open source, right? That allows a human elements in that may just sometimes inadvertently create some type of exploit. So, keep that perspective in mind, that there's no 0% way of this happening. We see it too often, right? Larger corps and organizations get infiltrated themselves, and I'm sure they've got all kinds of six-figure type investments into security and data protection, and they still get exploited. So that can happen to you as well. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these things are automated from the attacker's point of view. But from your perspective, here are some things you should consider in terms of just a general overview of your actions, right? So you're going to respond. You've got an issue, but we got to figure it out. We got to recover. What does that mean? Sometimes it may just mean getting a solution in place. Let's say you already have a security vendor, or you speak to someone on your host about getting the site reviewed for malware. Great, you can get there, start recovering it. If you have to revert to a backup, if you have to restore databases, whatever those actions are going to be part of your recovery phase. Now you've got everything fixed. So let's review what our notes are. What did they tell us about what happened, when it happened, right? Remember, sometimes these things happen 6 months in advance, and then it's 6 months later they take action. So what were we doing 6 months ago? That means that what are those habits that we need to fix from 6 months ago from moving forward? And that's going to be your mitigation phase, right? What are we doing to harden ourselves, our behaviors, so that we're in a better position to succeed today and moving forward? And this might be something that you'll have to come right back to, because all of a sudden something changes and now you got to do it all over again, right? Because at the end of the day, what you don't want to lose is the confidence and trust of all your customers, right? Avoiding that red screen that I showed at the beginning, avoiding those feeds, avoiding any downtime. Those are all going to be indications to anybody visiting your site online that, ooh, I should stay away from there. I've read too much about that. oh, there's some kind of error in accessing their site because let's say your SSL certs got all mixed up or got revoked. Some people are more savvy these days. They know if they go through that site and that padlock's missing or not there, data could be sensitive, can be susceptible to being hijacked or anything. I know I pay super attention to that. So these are some of the things that you always make sure. You don't want to ever do anything to risk the trust of the customers you're trying to, make return customers, right? You want them to keep coming back and referring people. Well, on the other side, you don't want them to tell other people to avoid you. So that's at least a good overview on e-commerce security, some of the things you should and should not be doing. Of course, if you have any specific questions, we'd be more than happy to answer. But yeah, let us know.
This is awesome. Thank you, Victor. Victor, could you please tell us how Sucuri actually, what type of business proposal when it comes to security has, what Sucuri offers you? You made a number of things actually that each web developer and designer or person who maintains a website should be taken care of. Like, so how does Sucuri actually help in this world of security?
Sure. The thing at the beginning, I touched on website security being a combination of monitoring and protecting and being able to respond in the event that you have an incident. These are the things we offer. We offer monitoring to provide you ongoing detection in the event that, let's say it might be something you're not seeing on the website, people are not reporting to you from your customer base, which happens, so that you do have some type of visibility and indication that there's something wrong. And sometimes that's not going to be specific to malware. That could be, hey, this site's gone down, the server's reporting some 500 level error, something that is at least an indication something's wrong. Of course, we do also offer protection through a website firewall, which is cloud-based, not anything that requires very thorough installation or compatibility concerns or anything like that. But it's included with our service. That's built on top of what's known as well as a CDN. For those not familiar with that, it's a content delivery network designed to boost performance, which inherently will help you boost the ability for you to get performance up, your SEO rankings. These are all things that compoundly benefit each other. And lastly, if in the event, like I mentioned, if the inevitable happens and you're in the middle of a fire, we do have staff available 24/7 to help respond to those incidents so that we can get you back up and running, provide guidance where we can, again, as part of that mitigation process, and get you back up to a place where you feel more comfortable moving forward to do some of those things. We get so much feedback of, hey, yeah, I did not realize we had this much installed. We didn't know, oh, we forgot about that. I didn't even remember. That happens daily with us. So those are just some of the things we do offer that are the primary benefits for our customers.
So 2 add-ins to that since I disappeared. The first is a lot of people think, hey, I have a backup, so I'm safe. Something happens, I'm just going to revert to that backup, which is fantastic. But like Victor mentioned, a hack could have been sitting idle for 6 months before it was activated. Do you have a backup from 6 months ago? Because, I mean, even Sucuri, we offer a 90-day rolling backup. That's only 3 months. So if you're restoring from a backup that's 2 months old and that hack is still in there, it really hasn't done you much good. And that's where remediation comes into play, and we can go through those backups and make sure that there's no malware in it for you. So that's just something I wanted to add in there and say, hey, backups are not everything. They are important, but they are not the be-all, end-all of security.
This is awesome. I also have a question. Sometimes it's very hard to choose the packages, right? You don't know if you should choose the extended one, the premium one, maybe the basic one to cover it for yourself. How, and not everybody, knowing how to build a website doesn't mean actually that you understand the security part of it. So how would you actually advise someone which package to take?
With the most expensive one. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, though, it really depends on what you're looking for. Most of the packages are based off of response time. So how important is the site to you? How quickly do you want the remediation? As far as protection goes, really there's very little difference between the packages. The basic or the least expensive firewall does not cover custom SSL, but when you step up from that, there is no difference. They all cover SSL. They all block the same stuff. We're not going to tell you, hey, you're only paying us $10 a month, so we're going to let this malware through. Yes, sucker. Now, we're going to block everything the same on every level. It's just how quickly, when you open a ticket, do you want a response from us? Are you okay waiting a little while because maybe this is your hobby site and it's not that important to you? Or maybe it's a business site and you need it now, so you're willing to spend more to get that immediate reaction from us. And that's the major differences between them.
Awesome. Still waiting. Perhaps somebody from the audience would have a question. So in the meantime, I need to understand, Victor, are you bound to leave? Is this the time, or you still have a couple of minutes to spend with us?
I got a couple minutes as the noise gets close. For those, I just got some roof work getting done, so I see they've come back from their break, and so we'll see how quiet this room is.
So, okay, so the lunchtime, it's a breakfast or lunchtime where you were at?
Oh, for me, it's lunchtime. I know for my boss here, it's still morning time. So I think between the three of us, we've got the whole day covered here.
Yeah, exactly. All 3 time zones covered. That's true. So it would be nice. I will just shoot here in the chat the link to Sucuri. So I think it's very important nowadays. Here it is. Nowadays, a number of businesses are actually showing up online, and there's like the internet is becoming very busy, right? With so many online shops and different businesses offerings globally, regionally, or whatever continentally. So how does do you guys have anything, for instance, to tell us like? What is the future of security of websites? I mean, how is this going to look in some future time? Do you have a vision? I mean, since you've been involved in developing the product and marketing it, from the security point of view, what do you think the future of websites is going to be?
I think I'll make one comment before Joshua pops in. I think one of the things years ago that a lot of people probably underestimated was, I think WordPress made a big thing about learning JavaScript deeply, right? Like that becoming a bigger and bigger part. So my bigger comment there being that you don't know what language, what techniques you're going to be using in the development of e-commerce shops, and data encryption, and just even general like improvements on the UI as we move to much more mobile. I would even go as extreme as to say, like we laugh now, but like no one could have anticipated, let's say, how much the VR experience on your mobile could have been a part of what it is now. Does that become part of your online experience in 10, 15 years? So that's a bit more long term, but just being ready to anticipate that as maybe things shift to a different type of platform or a language you're building it on, that likely will bring on an onset of new potential security risks, which happen, right? A lot of our malware reports kind of highlight those types of trends changing into different malwares as a result of different languages and stuff you're using. So that's just one thing. Be very ready to have to make much more, or rather, deeper changes to your security approach as maybe you start realizing, oh yeah, WordPress or WooCommerce or e-com shops in general are starting to like really lean on this new technology. That's also probably an indication of new hacks along the way. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
Well, and they call this new generation, that you have millennials, they have boomers, they've got Gen X. This new generation, from my understanding, is going to be called the no-code generation because they don't need to know languages. Everything's click, drag, drop, right? And the languages in the background, you don't need to know how to code. And so it's going to be interesting to see that. Things that I'm really fascinated by, or things I'm looking at, is how blockchain is going to affect websites, because there's going to be huge effects there. The other one that's interesting is quantum computers, right? How are they going to affect security? Because 256-bit encryption for a quantum computer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. How are passwords going to be affected by quantum computers? Because to break a password right now, it may take hundreds of years, but with a quantum computer, it could take seconds. So how are we going to adjust to this new password technology with quantum computers? And how far off are quantum computers? I know we have a few small ones, but who's to say in 10 years that my home PC might be a quantum computer? I have no clue. So it'll be interesting to see those kind of things. Those are the areas that I'm looking at anyway.
Well, without further ado, first of all, thank you, Joshua and Victor, for this amazing opportunity to learn more about how to secure an e-commerce store. If there are any follow-up questions, I'll forward those to you, and perhaps you might actually directly answer to our guests. It was an utmost pleasure to actually show the work that you guys are doing to save the web and internet from the bad guys, and it's really an awesome opportunity actually to speak to you about security issues. Ladies and gentlemen, this was another GoDaddy Pro EMEA Meetup. Today is 19th of July. Next meetup we have 26th of July, and we're going to be talking about best shipping practices. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you next time. See you.